minutes. Those are from June 1st. I'd take any amendments if there are any, and if not, I would look for a motion to approve.
So moved, approval?
Mayor moves. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. King seconded. All right, I will call the roll. I would ask Mr. Frost and Mr. Heinrich to abstain.
Abstain.
Mr. Frost. Dr. Haver?
Yes.
Mr. Heinrich abstains. Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Sharon, yes. The minutes are approved as submitted. Next item is a report of the financial supervisor.
Good afternoon, everyone. Before you are the two packets that you're used to seeing every meeting. The financial packet is through June 30th, 2016. The city is reconciled through July. I just received the information and not enough time to throw it together. But the city is to date reconciled. If you'd like to look on page 2. You can see our deficit funds up at the top. Again, the city at the last meeting had completed all their transfers and for the most part moved all the deficits into the general fund, so we see one big picture. Currently, in addition to the general fund, there are 4 other deficits. The first one, the police pension, has a deficit of just under $9,800. This actually goes into the black in July. The city received their advance on the second half property tax collections already, and that wiped out that small deficit. The community development deficit of $19,729. The city has requested about $12,000 in July for payroll and pension costs, so that will help reduce that. And also the city is working on getting the CDBG administrator the information necessary to draw down on the healthcare costs as well. They realize they did not provide that yet. So between those two pieces, the community development deficit should be reduced. The VOCA deficit of $38,929. The city is waiting for the judge's order to go ahead and transfer the $35,000 from the court special projects. And there are also some outstanding reimbursements that the VOCA director has requested that has not been received as of yet. And the last deficit, the COPS universal of $23,965. The city actually received that exact amount of money in July. It's a reimbursable grant, so the city actually has already received that in July, and so that deficit. The COPS universal will run at a small deficit, but as soon as I get reimbursement, it will net itself out. If you look to page 5, since half the year is done, in theory, you would expect to see approximately half of the revenue coming in that was estimated. And the two biggest is CDBG and home funds, and those were just estimates based on what I thought would happen, but it's all on a reimbursable grant basis. So
Given that, Tish, how is the department going to know how to hold their budget in line?
The finance office has worked with the CDBG office, and there were some adjustments made at the beginning of the year.
Okay.
to ensure that everything that hits that fund actually gets submitted for reimbursement.
Okay.
And we have, I was provided documents of the awards for both CDBG and the home program. And so that's what the estimate is based off of for the amended certificate is, because the awards overlap year end a little bit. So I kind of looked to see what they did in the prior year and based my estimate for the amended certificate off of that. But the expenditures that are actually hitting the funds, the finance office made a few adjustments to ensure that everything would be reimbursed that hits the funds. And on page 6, just like with revenues being half the year over, you would expect to see approximately 50% of the appropriations to have been spent. Some of the large departments would be central services underneath the general fund. You can kind of see it's at almost 93%. The city has been diligent in trying to pay back, trying to reduce their accounts payable. The city was able to save approximately $45,000 by making a large payment to the illuminating company, and then they requested that some of the delinquent fees and charges be forgiven. So the city was able to do that and to save some money that way. There has also been a few other large payments for delinquencies for the various utilities, and that's why central services is a little bit, well, quite a bit out of whack with the 50%.
How likely do you think it is that council have to go back and reappropriate?
Most definitely. Once I survive July, in August, I'm going to work with the city on new appropriations. The healthcare, we're still monitoring healthcare. The city may have estimated a little high for the healthcare costs for the year. So we're hoping to reallocate those appropriations to help cover some of these delinquent payments that were made.
I have a question for the delinquent accounts. You mentioned that they paid back some items that were on their payables. Do you actually have to go back to council, and maybe you do in the city's functions, but the encumbrance didn't roll over to increase the annual appropriation?
The appropriations that were passed, in the prior year encumbrances didn't automatically include in the current year because the city's budget is so tight. The appropriations that are passed encompasses everything the city's looking to spend this year.
Gotcha.
The next is the police pension, fire pension, and bond retirement. As I mentioned at the last meeting, there are debt funds, and so the debt payment has been made. The second payment for the pension funds will be in November, and the second payment for the OPWC actually is in July. And then the final fund is law enforcement. Again, I just